I will say it is kind of ironic that most of my notes for this video, if you can see this, my notes are normally multiple pages. My notes today just say, just read the other pages. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell-Smith, and today we are talking about how much you can make as an Ontario social worker. I have the answer. I'm not going to make the joke that we are not paid enough. Timestamped below is the part of the video where I actually say the numbers, but of course, we have to go through research methods and why I chose the methods I chose and kind of some of the surrounding details behind it. So in this video, we're gonna break down the salaries between the Bachelor of Social Work and jobs that only require the BSW, jobs that require the MSW, the Masters of Social Work, and the methods behind my findings. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things business, photography, higher ed, mental health, life. Let's start with my research methods though. Let's start with how did I figure out these numbers in the first place? First, I wanna say all hourly wages were calculated for hourly wages based on 37.5 paid hours per week and 50 paid weeks per year. 37.5 being the typical full-time number of hours, it's not the full 40, and 2 weeks in case anything happens or it's unpaid. If a job posting did list the annual salary, we just used the salary. With it, for almost every single situation, every single job, ranges were presented. Please note, I'm also presenting to you the lowest end of the ranges. The lowest end of the ranges is what made up the averages and the medians. Speaking of which, next, I looked at and I present both the averages and the medians. Average is what a lot of people look at. Median is a little more statistically stable and it tends to be a little more accurate. And the relationship between the two can be interesting. It definitely is in this case. I will say now, and you will see it in different ways, the MSW, the jobs that required a Master's of Social Work, had more fluctuation and volatility, so there were more extreme ranges. So there was a little bit more of a difference in the average versus median for MSW jobs versus BSW jobs. I'm going to try and get all of these right, but a mix of cities were used in Ontario. So I looked up jobs based in Guelph, London, Brampton, Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Hamilton, Brantford, Windsor, Peterborough, Stratford, Ottawa, and Barrie. This way there was a mix of northern and southern, rural and urban, so that there wasn't too much density in one particular area or type of area. For the number of hours of work as well, any job listed that was private practice therapy was approximated at 25 billable hours, because most mental health clinicians and social workers probably aren't doing 40 billable hours a week. 25 seemed like a good average to go from. Research was conducted between January 29th and February 10th of 2025, so almost a 2-week period. The total number of jobs searched was 87, plus the aggregate results. Results were ruled out if they did not actually require a Bachelor of Social Work or a Master's of Social Work. So jobs were sought out primarily on Indeed, though there were a few from Glassdoor and a few from LinkedIn, but there were jobs listed within social work, within the social work field, but did not actually require training or experience in social work. So examples included entry-level jobs with no qualifications needed, ABA, so Applied Behavior Analysis certification, ECEs, Early Childhood Educators, or were otherwise misleading, which was a thing that I found. So those were the methods that I used to come to these conclusions and findings. So let's get to those averages and medians. I'll put it up on the side of the screen here. I will also show you a graph so you can see what it looks like across the board. But the average of all results, I also used web aggregate results. So there were articles on Indeed, Glassdoor, Government of Canada, ZipRecruiter, ChatGPT, which all reported on the average salary. So across averages of the web aggregates and my own research, average social worker salary is $71,143.71. The median was 69,811. So because those numbers are, I would say, relatively close, that means that the median and the average pretty accurately reflect each other. Now, that information is based on their own aggregates over long periods of time and their own research. But with my research, here's what I found. The BSW average was $59,435. So a little under $60,000. Versus, are you ready for this? I thought this was shocking. The MSW average salary per year was $92,282. So a little more than a $30,000 jump for a 2-year master's. The BSW median was not far off from the average. So the BSW median was $57,168. So about a $2,000 difference. That $2,000 difference was also the difference between the median and the average across all results. And we're going to call that statistically acceptable. But the MSW median, this is interesting. When you line up all the salaries, what's the most middle number? The MSW median is $87,500. That is $5,000 less than the average. And there's a reason why, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. For my research, the average of all averages was 75,859. So my average was a little bit higher than what the aggregate averages was. I think that's because I was looking at 2025 results and our numbers would have accounted for inflation and changes in the job market. And the median was $72,334. So a little bit higher than the median of all the aggregate results. Again, I think because of changes in the market and when this research was conducted. And if you want a graph to see what this looks like, I'm putting a graph on the screen now that you can see, so you can see the differences there and see how the MSW is generally a little bit higher across the board in salary. But there are definitely some dips and some places where BSWs make more. But otherwise, and quite consistently, you earn less with a BSW than an MSW, a Master's of Social Work. So some considerations here to make. One, now we have kind of statistical and economic data to prove that the MSW is the gold standard in social work. A lot of jobs require it, but also it brings with it a lot more earning potential. Speaking of earning potential, the big reason why I found there was such a difference in the average versus the median for the MSW is because of private practice. And private practice for self. You can make a lot more going into private practice, counseling and therapy for yourself. Now, that no longer accounts for, and you suddenly have to pay overhead. You're paying for space, you're paying for online platforms, you're paying for invoicing, you're paying a lot more, but it still brings with it a lot higher of an earning potential than if you joined a group practice or if you got a job somewhere else. So private practice, and this applied technically to the BSW as well, you technically can go into private practice with a BSW, a Bachelor's of Social Work. There's some other funnier rules around it, but that's for another day. Private practice will always drive and skew the average up. I will say as well with the MSW, I called them unicorn jobs. There were a couple more unicorn jobs that skewed the average higher, which also means that there are rare jobs that you can get. You're more likely to get with the Masters of Social Work where you can earn a lot more. I found those jobs were if you were part of a protected or marginalized group, supporting a protected or marginalized group, if you were in a really remote area or doing a difficult job. As you can also see from this, the earning potential is quite substantial, the difference between a BSW and an MSW. And there are definitely outliers and low payers for both the Bachelor's of Social Work and the Master's of Social Work. So we have to watch out for those. And that is the simplified version of how much you can earn as a social worker in Ontario. Of course, I think it always goes without saying that a career goes beyond the hourly amount you make. You might also want to think about what we call a total compensation package. So are there benefits? Are there other perks? We also think about satisfaction, and a big reason why people go into social work, why they report loving their jobs in social work or their careers in social work, is how fulfilling it is. So don't just hinge this all on income, but here, this I hope clarifies the income potential for social work. Comment and let me know, did these ranges surprise you? I have to admit, and I'll be honest here, I was surprised. I originally went to make this video in an effort to try and prove, yes, you can make money, you can make really good money in social work, and the data was very humbling. So comment and let me know where this landed for you. As always, make sure you like and subscribe for all things business, higher ed, mental health, and life. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.